Well, hello, StemToRoots. This is your host, Mike Demba. This is where we plan on talking our way into a plan. Well, my people, my super special guest today is unlike any guest that I've ever had here on StemToRoots. This guest is in her infancy stage, but growing so fast, she is unavoidable. Okay, my guest is Chat GPT. My guest today is Chat GPT. If you hear me address Chat GPT as a she, as a her, as a woman, just humor me here. All right. I think Chat GPT has got to be a woman, because for Chat GPT to be able to like process all this information, gather it, process it, uh, uh, eh, it's only a woman that's got to be able to do that. So um, let's say Chat GPT is a woman. Okay. So Chat GPT has been around for the past 2 years, since around November 2022, but made popular by mass adoption in like the last few months. If you've not heard of ChatGPT, I'll ask you where you've been hiding. And if you've been hiding, I'll ask that you please get out of your hiding place because AI is not slowing down. It's here and it's here to stay. Okay. In our last conversation, the last guest that I had here, Dr. Henan Juve, if you've not watched that video, you need to go watch it. I urge you to please go watch it, go listen. He mentioned how huge of a focus in his job right now as an educator, helping young people set a direction towards meeting the future. AI has been a big chunk, if not the biggest, for his job right now. AI has been around in different forms for years now, but of late, with the direct consumer access by way of Chat GPT, for instance, higher education is scrambling to figure out how to coexist with the level of access of information. Lawyers, underwriters, authors, screenwriters, all figuring out how to live with the, dare I say, threat of AI. Roles focused on, let's say, data analysis, bookkeeping, basic financial reporting, and these jobs that you have to repeat, like administrative jobs that you have to repeat tasks. All of these are just highly threatened by automation. Okay, but hey, we're not here to talk about AI. We're here to talk to AI. Okay, so there's a difference here. All right, that will be a whole other segment. But today we're here to talk to AI. Okay, if you've been a fan of the conversation that we've been having here at StemToRoots, by now you know the most common questions that we ask, right? And these questions when I ask ChatGPT because what? She's our guest today, okay? So you all know over here at StemToRoots, we treat our guests with hospitality and respect and kindness. Okay, so ChatGPT is our guest today, so we have to treat her just like that. Okay, so for almost every guest that we have here, we usually want to know why Africans leave the continent of Africa, migrate to the West, and actually stay. So we want to know ChatGPT's opinion on why we migrate here to the West and we stay. All right. We also want to know ChatGPT's opinion, on the state of our continent. Just questions that are similar to that. But I want to limit it to like 2 or 3 questions. Like AI models are built on data collection, learning and relearning and improving their previous answers. ChatGPT is no exception. So why don't we ask her? Why don't we, know what she has gathered, so far? So stick around, please. Stick around. I'll ask her opinion on those two questions and have a surprise bonus question actually at the end. I am super curious to know, what ChatGPT thinks about this, question that I have. So, without further ado, let's just go and meet ChatGPT. Okay. All right. Here's ChatGPT. Okay, so I'm not going to introduce ChatGPT. We'll let ChatGPT tell us who she is. All right. So what I'm going to ask first is who, if I can type, is ChatGPT. Well, there. I am ChatGPT, an AI language model created by OpenAI. My purpose is to assist and interact with users like you through text based conversation. I was trained on a diverse range of internet text generate human like responses to a wide variety of prompts and questions. Feel free to ask me anything, or chat about whatever interests you. So ChatGPT is telling us who ChatGPT is. You can literally ask anything you want. ChatGPT, like it said there at the top, is an AI language created by OpenAI. So OpenAI meaning collecting all data, analyzing it, filtering through, where most answers come from, and try to be as accurate as possible and continuously learn to perfect that ChatGPT answer. Okay. And this is ChatGPT, and this is what ChatGPT is saying. Feel free to ask me anything. So what we're going to do is ask those questions that normally here at StemToRoots we will ask our guest. So let's not waste time. Let's just get straight into it. Okay. So what I want to ask, like I said in the introduction, is why do Africans migrate and stay, here in the West? So let's go ahead. Why do African immigrants migrate to the West and stay? Let's just stop right there and stay. Nah. ChatGPT has got a lot to say. A lot. Okay. All right. So we'll filter through this answer. I left it open, but we'll filter through the answer to see the similarities between what data AI has collected, versus the answers that we've been getting, from most of our guests in the past year. Actually, wow. StemToRoots will be a year old this month. That is big time. All right. So here, it says, let me zoom in a little bit. Let me zoom so that we'll be able to read this text. All right. African immigration to the Western countries like the United States, Canada, and those in Europe is driven by a combination of push and pull factors. Here are some reasons why African immigrants migrate to the West and often choose to stay. Look at the top, economic opportunities. Most of our guests here, we've talked about this, better living. All right, let's see what ChatGPT thinks. Economic factors play a significant role. Many African immigrants seek a better job prospects and higher wages in Western countries compared to their own home countries, where economic opportunities may be limited. All right, so we're talking about our continent. We're leaving our continent. We're leaving all these African countries, all 54 of them, depending on who is counting, to go to the West, like listed up there, United States, Canada, and Europe, for better economic opportunities. Political stability and security. We've talked about this a lot. Okay, a lot of African countries, year after year, we always have a handful, if not more than a handful, I'm trying to be optimistic here, of countries that are not stable. And so it has her people, literally running away from, that country, either going to other African countries as refugees, or, almost everybody trying to run away, figuring out how to make it out there to go to a country that is, more stable. Okay, so we all know that as African immigrants. Education is number 3. A lot of us, I included, the goal in the beginning was to go get an education, higher education. In this case, it says access to quality education is a key motivator for migration. That was my story. I left for education, and here I am 20 years later. Western countries often offer better educational opportunities and facilities. Facilities is key. Okay, we know a lot of doctors, we know like medical doctors, we know a lot of like environmentalists, we know a lot of you know higher education that actually need access to facilities. I've spoken to a lot of people that talk about, okay, if I'm a doctor, if I'm a scientist, and I'm trying to access a lab, to make sure I maximize what it is that I want to do or accomplish. The West offers, more facilities and access to, things that match what it is that, a highly ambitious person is trying to accomplish. Education, okay? Healthcare and infrastructure. Chat GPT so far is just hitting it on the head, okay? This is what all my guests have been talking about, okay? Healthcare and infrastructure. Healthcare is a big one, all right? Infrastructure, we know that as a continent, we're trying to get there with infrastructure. It's a problem. You'll go to every African country, and infrastructure, or up to par infrastructure is usually just around the cities or bigger towns, right? Everything other than that is just tough to navigate our continent. The quality of healthcare and overall infrastructure can be more advanced and accessible in Western countries, attracting immigrants seeking better healthcare services and living conditions. All right, family reunification, right? Family reunification, I'll take that for once Africans leave and they stay outside of the continent and start their family. We all know, we all have this story. Again, I'll take myself as an example. After living here for so many years, for over for 2 decades now, I ended up bringing my mom because I'd rather have her around me long term than the 2 week visits that I make. Once that starts happening, you start bringing family to get closer to them after all these years of being away from them. So that's a big factor. All right. Political and religious freedom. That's a whole other topic. Okay. It has not been talked about a lot from my guest because I think we lean, towards more the economic side, the safety side. But freedom, religious freedom to go and practice whatever the hell you want to practice, is something that is lacking in our continent. It's not too widespread, I can say, but in our continent, not everybody is free to do whatever they want to do. Whether it's people's choices in sexuality or freedom of religion, or some political views. So that level of freedom can be threatened in some African countries. But even though this is not something that I would deem up there or widespread, because a lot of African countries, people are free to practice whatever religion they want to practice, for sure. For me, for as a Gambian, that has been my experience. Until lately, you'll hear a few things, but overall, people are free to practice whatever religion they want to practice. Like where I'm from, the Gambia is 95% Muslim. Christianity is 5%, and Christians and Muslims have been coexisting, for half a century now. As long as the country has been independent. Okay. So it says here Western countries are often, perceived as providing greater political and religious freedoms, which can be attractive to immigrants escaping persecution or seeking to practice their beliefs freely. All right. Number 7, and we're getting there. It says diaspora communities. Established African diaspora communities in Western countries can provide social networks, support systems, and familiarity with new immigrants, making the transition easier, which is true. A lot of Africans, when they come here, they do form communities. They do form communities where there's help. Even though we can help each other more. I mean, because that's a big topic. When it comes to Africans, that's a huge topic where we're not helping each other enough. But you'll find a lot of communities, in the West, where Africans will come, and there'll be a lot of solidarity. They'll form all these groups where they try to welcome in Africans as they come, and try to like help them navigate these new systems and these new homes. Networking and connections. I think that was mentioned just a second ago. Some African immigrants have networks or connections in Western countries that facilitate their migration and integration processes. So ChatGPT, I'm impressed. I like these answers. We've been talking about these things. Like I said, ChatGPT is a huge data collector. Hence, I called her a woman. Collects all these data, store it, and will bring it back to you. So you better not mess up, because she will know whatever you inputted in there. At the end of the day, all this information, all this data comes from humans. ChatGPT is just compiling it, gathering it from all over the place, and making sure the information is filtered. I'm going to scroll down and skip all these things because we talked about these mostly, right? Opportunities for kids, legal status and stability, and all that stuff. So in summary, ChatGPT is saying African immigration to the West is motivated by a desire for better opportunities, stability, and quality of life. Once settled, various social, economic, and personal factors contribute to their decision to stay and build their lives in these new environments, which is very, very true. I always say here, for every guest that I have here, I say we all have different stories, we all have different experiences, and ChatGPT has touched on all of that. Some lean one side, and some, it's a mix of things. But ChatGPT, thank you very much. So the next question I actually want to ask is, what did I write down? I actually did want to know what ChatGPT, what your prediction of Africa's economic in 15 years from now. How about that? Let's say about 15 years from now. Let's see what ChatGPT thinks. So this question that I just asked, and I'll scroll up so that we'll see what the question is. When we think about Africa, we think about a continent that has a lot of potential. So I'm curious to see what information ChatGPT has gathered that will tell us, where Africa will be in the next 15 years. All right. So let's see. What did I ask ChatGPT? I said, what's your prediction of Africa's economic status in 2040? ChatGPT said, predicting Africa's economic status in 2040 involves considering various factors. You know that. And that could influence its development over the next 2 decades. Okay, whilst it's challenging to make precise prediction, several trends and potential scenarios could shape Africa's economic landscape by 2040. I like that part. Okay, we're just looking to see what trends have happened so far that can actually make us look into the future and see where we're headed. All right. It says demographic trends. Africa's population is expected to continue growing rapidly, potentially reaching around 2.5 billion by 2050. This youthful demographic could present both opportunities and challenges for economic development, depending on how effectively countries can harness their demographic dividend through education, healthcare, and job creation. This is massive. We've had this conversation before. Africa is being looked at as a continent that will have 2.5 billion humans by 2050, of which youthfulness is just the gold in that, right? Young people, the continent that is younger than any other place in the entire world, like meaning the drivers of the future will all be coming from Africa. Urbanization and infrastructure development. Many African countries are experiencing rapid urbanization. By 2040, cities are likely to expand significantly, requiring substantial investment in infrastructure, housing, transportation, utilities to support growing populations and economic activities. So we see that, if you've been visiting Africa lately, places like Cote d'Ivoire, places like Dakar, South Africa, Zimbabwe, you go to all these countries, you will see how urbanization, just moving into the cities, and kind of that lifestyle of like that comparable to here in the US, where even how infrastructure is built now, more like apartment style, more kind of like young professionals and how they live. Africa is vastly headed towards that trend, and I'm curious to see where the next 15 years will take us. Technology and innovation, the adoption and advancement of technology could be a game changer for Africa's economy. Increased connectivity, digitalization, and innovation could boost productivity, entrepreneurship, and access to markets, driving economic growth. This is a big one. Of late, we just had a reunion of my sixth grade class, and I was surprised to see that we had a reunion like just 2 weeks ago. Not actually this last weekend, but 2 weeks ago. We were Gambia. Our my ex classmates of 3 decades ago. That's how old I am. Were putting together some money. I was surprised to see how they were paying. So they were paying through this app called Wave. I can't remember, but all of them were paying from wherever they are from their cell phones, and there are all these places where they will go and make their payment. And that one person that is collecting the money was just so they. So when I think about growing up as a kid, if we were to make a contribution like that, where people in all their different homes, it means getting up, walking over to that person's house, or having to travel if you need to just go give that person your contribution. So I was surprised to see how effectively technology is being used, especially with this age of cell phones and 24/7 connectivity. So that's big. All right. Trade and regional integration, deepening regional deepening regional integration and improving inter-African trade could enhance economic cooperation, boost competitiveness, and create larger markets for African goods and services. All right. This is huge. This is huge. How much, what kind of infrastructure are we setting in place so that African countries, will trade amongst each other? Because that's a huge one. It was Dr. It was PLO Lumumba that I was listening to, who was talking about how all these countries that have all the raw material, that have all these goods and even services, that offer all of that good stuff outside of the continent, just for it to come back as a different product. So we'll send all these raw materials out just for it to come back, and we just consume it, paying 10 times the price it could have been if we manufactured it at home or traded between each other. That is huge, and I hope in the next 15 years we make progress there. Governance and institutional development, strengthening governance, transparency, and institutions will be critical for attracting investment, fostering entrepreneurship, and ensuring inclusive economic growth. This is huge, right? Because when we think about governance, when we think about what Africa is known for, this part is very, very big. In the next 15 years or so, if the way Africa is perceived, if the way our governments are perceived, if they're not proven that, somebody in the West, somebody outside, anywhere else in the world outside of the continent, can actually go there and feel safe in investing and having gains, more and more and more and more investors will flock towards Africa, knowing the potential of Africa, if they can feel that it's not too risky. And how can they feel that it's not too risky? Data sets. We have to have our governments provide, a long period of time that, an investor and a business person can collect that data and look at it and say, all right, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the stats, numbers don't lie. In the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years, country so and so has been stable, and, all that stuff. If we don't provide that, if we don't provide those data sets, investors will look elsewhere. Because yes, Africa has potential, but as an investor, if your risk is too high, even though what you might gain from that risk is high, if the risk is too high, you can't tolerate it, you'll go to the next best thing, wherever that is. So I think that's threatening Africa. If those changes can be made, oh my God, the kind of thing Africa can be very, very, very soon. I'm talking about the near future. That's why I'm keeping this 15 years, not even 2050. I'm keeping it 15 years, like 2040. Global economic trends. Africa's economic trajectory will also be influenced by global economic dynamics, trade policies, technological advancement, and geographical shift. Managing external influences and leveraging international partnerships will be important for sustained development. This is very, very true. Okay, global economic trends. Globally, we've seen Russia, we've seen China, the US is still fighting all over Europe, right? Whether it's a country like the Gambia, Scandinavian countries are still going there as tourists and looking at opportunities, but being backing out by what they're seeing year to year. But as far as countries like China and Russia, everybody that is now looking at what Africa is knows these superpowers are looking at Africa, with dare say with greedy eyes, knowing the potential of the continent and what they can gain from it. Okay, so predictions for Africa's economic status in 2040 will depend on how effectively governments, businesses, and societies address these and other key factors over the coming decade. If managed well, Africa has the potential to emerge as a dynamic economic hub with growing middle class, diverse industries, and thriving innovation ecosystems. However, overcoming existing challenges related to infrastructure deficits, education, healthcare, governance, and climate change will be essential for realizing their potential. We all know this. ChatGPT, we know this, okay? But I'm optimistic, and I hope things will turn out right. Here's the surprise question. This is the question I've been thinking about. I want to know ChatGPT's opinion, so let me go ahead and type out this question. My last question to ChatGPT in this segment is, hey, ChatGPT, in your opinion, is Africa poor or rich? Because this is debatable. Let's see. ChatGPT, you're talking a lot. I'm not going to go through all of this. Calm down, chill. That's a lot. ChatGPT is definitely a woman. I ask one simple question: rich or poor? Boom. She just keeps going on and on and on and on. But anyway, I'm not gonna go through all of this. The reason why I asked ChatGPT this is, I said, in your opinion, is Africa poor or rich? Right? Is that Africa is that continent that everybody looks at and say, "Oh my God, the potential." All the world's natural resources all come from Africa, like gold, diamond, cobalt, oil. Like they just go on and on about how Africa has it all. Like the entire world depends on Africa for every resource. Actually, the existence of our world depends on Africa, for us to have all these fine and fancy things. What a rich continent, right? But at the same time, that same side of the mouth, everywhere you go in this world, especially in the West, when Africa is mentioned, is synonymous to poverty. Especially when you ask people that are not too informed. As soon as you say Africa, everybody thinks poverty, and everybody has that image of that baby with kwashiorkor and flies all over their face with a woman helping them drink from the bottled water. So, which one is it? Is Africa, should Africa be labeled rich or poor? And I'm confused by that all the time. So that narrative right there, I was curious to see what ChatGPT thinks, but ChatGPT did not shorten this answer. ChatGPT just went on and on and on. All right, economic diversity, natural resources, poverty and development indicators, entrepreneurship and innovation, investment and infrastructure, global positioning, on and on. So let's go to the summary. Let's skip all of that. If you're interested in seeing all of that, that's why I want to introduce you to ChatGPT. If you don't have ChatGPT, go ahead if you're curious. Type in that same question and read it if you need to. But I think the summary will tell us everything that ChatGPT is trying to say here. Oh, this woman can talk. But anyway, in summary, Africa's economic situation is multifaceted, characterized by a mix of opportunities and challenges. While some African countries are experiencing positive economic growth and development, others continue to grapple with poverty, inequality, structural impediments. It's critical to adopt a nuanced perspective that recognizes both the progress made and the areas requiring sustained attention and investment for Africa's continued development, which is very, very true. I'm not surprised by that. It's a continent basically that has it both, right? You can argue for or against. You can argue how poor the continent is, and you can argue how rich it is, depending on who you're talking to. Africa has all that cool stuff. Africa has all that all those riches, all the wealth, but yet poor because of mismanagement, because year after year after year we don't have that level of leadership that actually can turn that all of that wealth into, like, oh, I was listening to some Dubai citizen, somebody who was talking about how who was comparing actually Nigeria to his country, and talking about how quick Dubai got to where it got to, not because it's richer than Nigeria, but because of leadership, because it was managed better, than the entire country of Nigeria. So Dubai as a city, in getting to where it got to in those, in that quick turnaround, is coming from leadership, and where Nigeria is, with Nigeria's potential, the reason why Nigeria is where it's at is all leadership. It was just obviously it was a short form content. I listened to a 60-second video, but it was so telling. Well, there you have it. This was my conversation with ChatGPT. This was just a few questions that I had to ask. I have more. I have some funny ones, some silly ones, and some questions that are just me borderline trying to like stretch ChatGPT and see what ChatGPT's opinion is. These are really, really, thought-provoking questions, and I can't wait for you guys to join me again, so that asking ChatGPT these silly questions that I have, that I'm just curious to tap into how ChatGPT is gathering this information and what ChatGPT has for us. Until the next one, I'll leave you for now, but please come back again. And if you want to see the rest of my conversation, you know how this goes. Just make sure you subscribe, make sure your notification is set, so that anytime I put these videos up, you'll be the first to see. Okay, I can't wait to do this again. Thank you for now. Bye bye.